Hi, Bright Idea family. Welcome back to our channel. Listen, I want to take a second to ask you to do three things for me. If you are really enjoying this content and you're finding that this is helpful, I want you to like, subscribe, and share. Okay. Hello, everyone. It is time for us to get ready for our seventh of eight. Can you believe we are almost done with all of the parent initiative trainings? We are almost at the point where we're finished. This week, we're talking about the five senses and beyond. Next week, we're going to be talking about money management. That's going to be a good one. And the week after that, we're going to be talking about the affordable home buying process. A lot of you said you wanted information about that, but tonight, this is number 6. We'll have number 7, we'll have number 8, and then we'll be done with the parent initiative trainings. I want to welcome you all in this evening. Come on in here, come on in and get yourself situated so we can get into this good information. All right, so the reason I say research shows that children learn in other ways besides just the IQ, besides testing what they can revert back to us when we give them tests through a book or through information that we've taught, is because there was a researcher named Howard Gardner back in 1980, around 83, that started evaluating children. He's a psychologist who said, when I look at children and how they learn and how they develop, I see other areas that are not touched or targeted that are important to how they process information and how they develop as children. And some of those other areas that he found were linguistic intelligence, not only through mathematical, some spatial, music, body, interpersonal and intrapersonal, how we interact with each other, between each other, and what goes on with us internally. That's the intrapersonal. And then the naturalistic, associating what's going on in the world around us with how we're interpreting and understanding the world. So these are other areas that we don't typically test, but play a huge role in how children acquire information, okay? And when we're in school, usually when we're teaching students, we're teaching them through books, we're teaching them through words on a board. So we're using their sense of sight, we're using their sense of hearing, we're using the way that they talk, and maybe the things that they touch. But if you can layer that whole learning experience with all those different types of learning, it makes it easier for children to access the information. And an example I like to give with this is what I used to do when I was a preschool teacher. Children can conceptually understand an apple. They've eaten an apple before, or they're familiar with it because they've seen it a few, throughout their life. But when we actually had a chapter where we talked about different fruits and vegetables and the food pyramid, just like we did in some of our earlier sessions. And when I got to that chapter and teaching them about the different food types of foods, the proteins, the grains, the fruits, the vegetables, what I used to love to do was to bring in not only pictures, because a picture is a two-dimensional object, they can see it, they understand it, but a three-dimensional object that was the same type of food. So a picture of an apple, a toy that's an apple, like we would have on our refrigerator or in their little toy kits. If you buy the little kitchen sets for girls, sometimes you'll see an apple in there. Or sometimes the decorative fruit that we use in our tables, the wax fruit. I don't see that much anymore. That's like kind of aging me because I used to see it all the time when I was growing up. But, bring in the toy of the apple. So that's a different type of learning versus the two-dimensional. But what about when you bring that apple in and you bring it in all the different colors? You cut it, you let them smell it. That's a way to learn about the apple. You let them taste it. That's another way to experience the apple. You let them touch it. And when you can layer those body connections to the object you're teaching, it makes it easier for the child to understand the fullness of that topic. So that's why Gardner said, you know, we have to take into account these other ways that children learn so that we can help them to become better learners and access more information that is around them. So tonight we're really going to focus on the bodily learning, with the interpersonal, because that has to do with our social and our emotional learning, because learning is definitely tied to our emotions and our behaviors, and the naturalistic learning, how we interact with the world around us to learn about the things we need to know. Okay? All right. So we've gone through all 5 of the senses. Easy. You know, you can talk about your sight, your hearing, your smell, your taste, and your touch. Sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Those are the 5 senses that we usually focus on. But how will we address those other senses? How do we combine senses to learn and address the emotional intelligence that is going on and the spatial awareness, the naturalistic awareness as we're going through the learning process? All right. Okay, so why is this important for us? Well, for one thing, you definitely want to do this because it helps students have a really comprehensive type of education. When you only focus on teaching them through words or through sight, they miss a lot of little nuances in information. But if you are able to give them this broader sense of information, they're able to learn better. You can enhance the outcomes. You know, when I was younger, we used to sing songs to remember things, and I'm sure your children too. You know, it used to amaze me how my kids could listen to a song and they would remember the words right away. I always struggled with that. But some children learn if you can put it in a song, or they can do it. I've seen students do this with math. I've seen them do it with different rules for writing. I've seen students do it in all different kinds of ways. So if you can put the learning into music, you're addressing not only the sound, but if you put that music to movement, you're getting their body involved. And I know that I have seen my students sometimes sing the songs while they're doing the work, or make the movements while they're doing the work, because their body is helping them to remember what we taught them about the lesson. So that's one of the reasons why it is so important to layer the learning. It's also important because we talked about how students learn differently. Some students have disabilities. Some of you moms who participate in this have shared with us previously about your children having some intellectual impairments, some learning disabilities. Some of your children are nonverbal, and that doesn't mean that they can't learn. It just means the learning has to be adapted and make it accessible to them in the way that they can get the information. And sometimes that means putting it in motion versus saying it. You know, if a child is nonverbal, they may not be able to tell you the answer, but they can demonstrate the answer. And that's another way of checking whether or not they're obtaining the information that is going out. So it's important to use multi-sensory learning and to learn beyond the 5 senses, because it includes everybody in the learning process and makes it accessible to everyone. It's very holistic in the approach, and it prepares them for the future. Children don't always sit at a desk and behind a chair and listen to a person lecturing or showing them things on the board. And you guys know this as adults. When you go into your job, a lot of the times you're putting what you know into practice. You're demonstrating it through a project that you're working on, or through an assignment that you have to do for your job, or a process that you need to follow to get something done at your job. And your children will have to do that when they become adults too. So start them with that process earlier on, instead of having them sit and just get information that's being given to them. Have them start demonstrating that information and putting it to work through their hands, through their bodies, through their emotions. Okay.